Hey guys, it's Christina. This is Inside Indies. It's our first official episode. I say official because we basically did the first two episodes last weekend before we realized we were doing a new show, but that's okay. Um, I want to pick up on a lot of what I said in those lives. So at the risk of sounding repetitive, although I kind of feel like this is something maybe we can't hear enough as a part of this community. You guys will be the judge of that, though. Because I talked a lot about a couple of things: connection, what it really means to get your music heard, and what it is that we're all doing here in this community. Um, and I want to refine that a little bit more today into talking about setting goals and expectations for yourself, defining success and what that means for you and your project or your band specifically. And then also the intersection of that with mental health, because I have had a lot of really intense and really meaningful discussions with people this week who are struggling. I spend my time doing two things, basically listening to indie music and talking to indie musicians. And I'm always so honored when people come to me with anything that they need help with, whether it's their music or, a release specifically, or a new project, or, just something personal that they're dealing with. And it's funny because this community is so supportive and so kind and so generous and so selfless. And, everybody that I've connected to and become friends and family with among you guys, embodies that beautifully. There are a few people that I think the community all knows who really go above and beyond in terms of, being selfless, amplifying other people, sharing out music, constantly promoting other projects. And I became aware in the last week or two, in a way that I don't think I had been before, of the fact that something that I carry with me as a member of this community, I'm not alone in carrying with me. And what I mean is, when you love people and you want to help people, you want to support people, and you want to be part of helping them realize their dream, whatever that form or shape of it is an incredibly sustaining thing to help other people. I have the shirt, I say it all the time, helping people is my kink, and it always has been and it always will be. That's the thing that feeds me more than anything else. But I also feel a tremendous amount of responsibility to this community. Every song that I miss, every review that I can't do, every, premiere that we can't schedule, or, person that we can't feature. I'm that person who I can have a checklist of 99 things to do. And I do 98 of them. And the one that I didn't get to is the one that, in my brain, and I ignore all the stuff that I actually did accomplish, because I always feel bad for the thing that I missed. And I've been talking to people lately who are having that same experience in this community, and I don't want to get into anything that's specific to, just a few people. And obviously I'm not going to betray any confidences or anything like that, but it's part of a bigger issue, I think, of this whole "what are we doing in the community" conversation that I started last week, and that I think we'll be having for as long as the community exists. And it's the idea that whatever you're doing here, whether you're here making your music and sharing it, whether you're doing that and also amplifying other people, whether you're not making music of your own, but you're here to, support the community and get their music heard, whatever that looks like, you have to protect yourself. You have to protect your mental health. And you have to remember that it's not, the community can hold itself up and hold you up in those moments where you feel like you can't be the one being supportive, where you feel like you can't be the one, sharing everything and listening to everything and making playlists and, promoting other people. And I feel like when I percolate all of this, it comes down to the idea of expectation. Now, one of my favorite sayings of all time is that expectations are just premeditated resentments. And I love that because it's so true, and it's mostly true when you expect it of other people. You expect somebody's going to do something for you, or expect somebody's going to feel some way about you, or expect somebody's going to have a particular reaction, or, engage in a particular behavior, whatever. And if they don't do it, then you're like, what the fuck? But you were supposed to, or I thought you were gonna. And that's a very dangerous slope, right? Expectations of other people. It sets up a lot of situations for failure, right? But it's human nature. Everybody has expectations to some degree. But I think the more subtle and probably more dangerous expectations are the ones that we place on ourselves. And as musicians, it's a big one, right? Like, whatever your version of success for your music is, you have a definition. And if you don't, you should. And I say that, like you should, but I mean, for yourself, you should. You should really know what you're going for. Are you truly trying to make it in the sense of, become the next Beyonce, or, be on a label, whatever, sell out arenas, everybody knows your name, you're on the radio? Is making it for you just, a small but really devoted group of people who listens to your music and absolutely loves it? Whatever your dream is, make sure you're defining it for yourself. We're going to have other discussions about that on this show. But when you have a goal, right, it's possible to have a goal without having expectations for yourself. And I think that distinction is tricky but important, because a goal is kind of another way of saying a dream, right? Except that goals are more actionable and dreams seem more abstract and sort of, well, if they happen, they happen. And if they don't, they don't. However you define that, I think that it's easy to say, okay, I want to have, 150 people who've never heard my music before have heard my music by the end of this year. That's a goal. Okay. Now, in order to get a goal to happen, you do have to do some work, unless you're really lucky or really rich or really well connected in the higher echelons of things, which I think most of us are not, or you probably wouldn't be sitting here watching this right now. But, how do I make that happen? Reach out to people, promote my music, get it on playlists, do all the things. We all know what that looks like. And again, we'll have discussions about more granular things about, what we can do to get our music heard literally in future episodes. But it's coming back to the idea of, okay, this is what I want for my music. This is what I want for my career. Expectations are where we start to go awry, because if you're expecting something, you're pretty much resigning yourself to feeling like you failed, or other people have failed you, or some combination thereof, if your goals aren't met, if your expectations aren't met. And I think that when it comes down to mental health, and I know I'm a little bit all over the place here, but I'm always thinking out loud. So again, please bear with me. But, when it comes to mental health, and specifically as musicians, where we're so passionate about what we do, it's easy to look around at the community and see some people are getting tons of streams. Some people are, getting tons of followers. And this is where the numbers conversation that I started last week comes into play. This idea of how we get caught up in the rat race of all of that. And it can be easy to start to expect that that's what should happen when you put your music out into the world. And again, a couple of things. Make sure that that's what you actually want, right? You really want, 60,000 streams on a song that's going to disappear in, a week or 28 days or whatever. Anyway, fine. You want, and I'm not putting it down. But I'm just saying, like, a lot of the numbers are ephemeral. That's the nature of streaming numbers. It's like holding water in your hands, right? You have it and then you don't. But make sure that you figured out what you want, because if you figured out what you truly want, and really ideally more what you truly need from what your music does once you let it out into the world, it might help you protect yourself from expectations that you're going to pressure yourself with that don't even meet the goals that you really have for yourself. But more to the point, it's so easy to get depressed and anxious and burned out and overwhelmed and overloaded when you're passionate about something like music and you put it out in the world and you're aiming to connect with people over it, again, however that looks for you, and it doesn't happen. So why doesn't it happen, right? These are the what ifs that I see all the musicians that I talk to going through at some point. One way or another, there's some version of these couple of things. I put out this song. I think it's good. Okay, maybe it's not exactly the thing that I wanted to make, whatever, but I put it out there. I think it's good. Nobody's listening to it. Okay, well, why not? Well, the way that you choose to answer that question is probably going to have a lot to do with your mental health, your level of self-confidence, your awareness of, the music industry and how it works and how it doesn't, all these little moving parts. But you could say, well, it's because the algorithm is hiding it. Very possible. I just saw a musician a night or two ago who was ready to walk away from everything because nobody was hearing the music, had been promoting it on their page, for weeks and trying to do a big push. And it just was being met with crickets. And they were basically like, fuck this. Like, what's the point? Community kind of, I put out the Vox signal and everybody rallied around and listened. And of course it's a good song, that's not the problem. The algorithm is hiding it. Okay, fine. Nobody's listening to my track. Why not? Well, maybe it's not good. That's the one, right? That's the scary one. Maybe it's not good. Maybe I thought it was good and it's not. Maybe, I didn't play this well or sing this well or compose this well or the lyrics didn't, whatever. And I wish so much that I could, while preserving a reasonable sense of personal accountability for everybody and self-awareness, and the desire to always strive to be even better than you are musically now down the line. I wish I could abolish maybe it's not good as the first thought that most people have, because there's so much impact from that. There's so much impact from, I've made this thing. It expresses what I want to express, and it's got my heart and my soul and my blood and my sweat and my tears in it. And nobody gives a shit. Nobody likes it. And then it's a very easy jump to go from, well, nobody likes it to nobody likes my music to nobody likes me, right? And oh my God, where are we now? We are in this horrible rabbit hole of self-doubt, and it's depressing as shit. And it's why I think so many musicians struggle with mental health. Now, I'm not discounting genetics and nurture and childhood and trauma and life experiences at all. But I think when you have a vessel that you send your heart out into in the world, it's like having a kid in a way. You send your heart walking around outside your body, and you got to kind of watch and make sure that it's protected, but you're not holding on to it anymore. It's out there and the world can do whatever it wants with it. And that's what music is like, right? You make something, you create something of yourself. It's a piece of you if you're doing it right. And to have that fall flat with people, to be ignored by people, to be met with, oh, yeah, by people. Anyone who's not a musician or an artist in some way can't understand how devastating that is. Devastating it is. And it's why I worry so much about the numbers. Because it's hard enough to say, well, I'm expecting to get this many listens on this song, or I'm expecting to get this many followers on my page or whatever, and to not have it happen and to get frustrated by that. Okay. But then, you keep in mind that there is an algorithm. None of us understands it. It's like the fucking Da Vinci Code. Like, okay, well, I'm supposed to post a certain number of times a day, but with pictures, but not with links here. If I put my links, I have to put them in the comments, but I can't say in the post that the link's in the comments because then they're going to bury it or whatever. We all know the bullshit. If you don't know the bullshit, welcome to the bullshit. The algorithm is not here to help you. It's really not. And that right there will just bury a bunch of really good music where nobody will hear it. I cannot tell you how many times I've stumbled across a post when my feed actually chooses to show me a musician that I wanted to follow and gone, oh, hey, a new song or a song I hadn't heard yet by this artist. And I play it and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I look and there's like one heart on it, or one like. That idea of I'm not good enough, that being the explanation for why things aren't landing with people. I am watching it destroy motivation. I'm watching it make people walk away from the community, make people walk away from music. And I'm watching it just insinuate itself into mental health. If you are someone who has struggled with depression in your life or anxiety in your life, that doesn't even have to have anything that it's attached to. It's like anybody who saw the Matrix movies, there were those things, they called them the squiddies. They look like, little octopi, and they would float around and they would look for ships to just rip apart and destroy. And that's how I've always thought about anxiety and depression. It's the squiddies, they're loose. It's just, something's wrong. And you're like, okay, brain, what is it? And you're like, I don't know, but it's wrong. And then everybody starts screaming and there's panic and whatever, right? If you've struggled with that when there isn't anything to attach it to, when you're a musician and you make music and you put it out into the world and it doesn't connect with people the way that you hoped that it would or expected of yourself that it should, that squiddie's going to latch on real hard, real fast, right? It's because I'm not good. It's because I'm shit. I can't do anything right. I'm not good enough. Nobody likes my music. Why am I even doing this? Why do I bother? I see all these people and, I know that they're doing really well and I'm not doing really well. And that must mean there's something wrong with me and that I'm not talented and that I'm not. If you felt any of that at any point, we got to take a breath right now. Okay? Because the hope is that a passion builds you up. It gives you an outlet. It gives you a voice. It gives you a way to communicate and connect with other people outside of yourself in ways that you might not be able to in any other format and with any other language or with any other experience. And because we've got this Gordian knot of something that we love and something that represents us and something that sustains us, but also something that has the huge potential to destroy us, right? If you've had writer's block and you can't make music, or you have some reason, your equipment breaks down, or, your life just intrudes to a degree where it pulls you away from your music, we all know there's that thing in there of, I've got to get back to it. I have to do this, and for some people, music is a lifeline. Absolutely. Not just a passion, but a lifeline. And because all of that is packed into this experience of making the music and putting it out into the world, what happens next has the ability to just crush people, right? I mean, take the flip side. You put something out and it gets a great reception. Everybody's sharing it. Everybody's listening, whatever. You're on top of the world, right? It's like the best feeling. Oh my God, people loved my song. They loved my EP. They loved my whole album. They loved, what I made and it worked. I did it, And then there's the next one. Right? You don't rest on your laurels. There's another song to be made. And then what if that one doesn't do as well as the first one did? Uh-oh. Right? Does that mean all of a sudden I'm not talented anymore? Does that mean all of a sudden people don't like my music or me anymore? Is this one not as good as the last one or what? The fact of the matter is we don't know why things connect and things don't. We have some good guesses. We do know the algorithm fucks with people. We do know that just from sheer volume of musicians and music that's being put out there, the odds that anyone's going to see or hear what you're doing are really small to begin with. We know that people are busy in their lives. We know all of this stuff, right? But it's too easy to fall back into blaming yourself or your skill or your talent or thinking you don't have any skill or any talent. And the effect that I'm seeing on people's mental health when that happens frightens me, because we are taking our beating hearts and we are feeding them to machinery, and they're just getting caught in the gears and just ripped apart. And it has nothing to do with how big and beautiful and loving your heart is. It has nothing to do with any of that. It has to do with, doesn't matter what you cook. If you feed it to a shark, they're going to eat it. It's gone. It is so easy to mistake being thrown away or ignored by the system, the industry, the machinery of the whole thing, the algorithm, the platforms, all of that. It's so easy to mistake that for a lack of your own value. And I'm watching people who are incredibly talented stop. And it breaks my heart, because it has nothing to do with your music. It has nothing to do with your value. And the expectations that this format of getting your music out into the world will make you have of yourself are going to hurt you, right? So what do we do? What do we do? If any of this is resonating with you, I would love to hear about it in comments, email me, DM me, whatever, because this is the beginning of a conversation. I'm not going to fix everything, solve everything, even touch on everything here. But I want people just to always begin from the framework of stepping back and pausing and parsing what's going on. Because we know that more often than not, the stuff that we put out into the world isn't going to connect the way that we want it to. That's the lot we have in life as musicians, right? Most of the people who made it didn't make it because they were any more talented or, wanted it any harder or, worked any more than most of us do. It's a series of connections and money and luck and resources and all the stuff that we've talked about before. And that's not sour grapes. It's just reality. I've seen people who absolutely should not even be making a sandwich, let alone music, just succeed wildly because, they have, a rich dad or, they know somebody that knows somebody in the industry and they get hooked up or whatever. And it's like, it will make you crazy if you look at things that way. So stop, pause. Okay. If you feel like you are making music that represents who you are, how do you put that out into a world that's likely not to pay enough attention to it to make you feel fulfilled without devaluing yourself? How do we do that? How do we withstand the bullshit of the industry and the machine without it just destroying our mental health? How do we do that? I think there are a couple of things. I love the idea of simplifying. Always simplify. Go back to the core. Why are you making music? Is it to be popular or is it to reach people? Because those are two different things. Is it to be, splattered across the airwaves, or is it to just be really listened to? Like, what is the least that you can be sustained by, right? Begin there. Is it one person coming up to you and saying, "Oh my God, I listened to your new song and it blew me away"? Is it, wow, I never knew that you could make something sound like that, or your lyrics are like, they're so interesting. Is it that? Will that be a start? Is that a place that we can go to kind of ground ourselves in what we're doing? Do you love it? Do you love it? Because I know I've written poems and I've painted paintings and I've put out songs that I really loved for myself. And they didn't necessarily land with other people. And as hard as it is, if I come back to it and I listen to it again, or I read it again, or I look at it again, and I go, do I still like this? And there's any version of yes in there, hold on to that. Is what I've gotten really quite amazing in the sense that I'm reaching people and connecting with people, but it's not meeting the expectations that I had for what it was going to do? Okay, where did those expectations come from? Is it from what I really want? Or is it from what everybody else is chasing? You know, again, we come back to the numbers, the idea that we're defining our art. And because our art and our music are an extension of ourselves, we are defining ourselves by how a system that is designed to spit out 99% of what it receives seems to value us. That is a recipe for absolute disaster, like absolute disaster. And the impact that it can have on depression and anxiety and you know, making you want to walk away from a thing that helps you keep depression and anxiety at bay. We cannot do that. We cannot do that. We have to stop. We have to take that breath. We have to simplify, redefine what you need to feel like you should just keep going. Is it one person? Is it 5 people? If it's a bunch of people, what do you do? Okay, don't sit there and say, I suck. I can't make music anymore. What am I doing here? Make sure people are actually hearing it, right? Reach out to individual people. Fuck, reach out to me, whatever. Hey, did you hear this? Because I can tell you most of the time, you know, as much indie music as I listen to, the answer is going to be no, just because there's so much, you know. Put out something that gives people a snippet so that they hear it and they can go, oh my God, this sounds great. Let me go find this track. Where do I chase it down? Just don't reduce yourself to the reaction that you get, because music is subjective. Art is subjective. You could have 1,000 people who love it and 1,000 people who hate it, and they're both right for themselves, right? But if you're putting yourself out into the world and you're making something that means something to you, you have to be aware of the battleground that you're sending it off to. It's like having a toddler and putting it in a cute little outfit with little rain boots and a little rain hat and then just throwing it into a tsunami. That's what we're doing with the music, right? Because it isn't a small group of people outside of this community. It's this giant machine. And the community is thriving the way that it is because we are a microcosm of the way that music should be received in the world. You know, we all do the things that we wish everybody could do. We pay attention and we listen and we connect and we care and we give feedback and we lift each other up and we make each other feel good because we genuinely love the music and we love each other. When we start to go beyond the 4 walls of the community, that's when we can run into trouble, you know, and that's really where we begin. We have to think about this. What do we need? What are you really, really needing from what your music does? And what's just expectation that's a fad, a trend, you know, popular? Everyone else wants this, so I want it too. And I'm listening to myself talk, and I know that I'm not articulating what I want to say as well as I wish that I could. So I'm going to try and TLDR the whole thing before I wrap it up. If you're a musician, you have a passion. You have a passion that represents you and embodies you and sustains you. You have to make music. You make your music, you put it out into the world. It lands, it doesn't. Some do, some don't. Some things do well. Some things you feel like nobody even paid attention to it. It's all so random. It's all so dependent on so many things. Are you being shadow banned right now? Is it a holiday and nobody's online? Is it the time of day when most people are sleeping? Is the algorithm burying it in some other way? You put things out there. It's so random. You cannot base your self-worth on something that is completely random and completely heartless. And more to the point, and again, I don't feel like I'm going to solve anything for people here today by saying this, but I at least want to begin the conversation around what these numbers do to our mental health. What this illusion of success that's being defined for us, for the most part, by other people does to our mental health. What the pressures of feeling like we have to be responsible for each other all the time can do to our mental health. And if you are struggling in some way and you are thinking about walking away, or much worse than that, stop, pause, simplify, reach out, connect. Okay? Because there are too many people in this community who would never ever let one of our own fall if we knew even the slightest bit that they needed it. They needed support. They needed attention. They needed a stream. They needed some feedback. If you feel like no one's seeing you or hearing you, you reach out. And I know how hard that can be. I know how hard it can be because you feel like you're burdening people, or you feel like you're, if people really cared about you enough, you wouldn't have to reach out. They would come for you. That's another expectation, right? It's not the truth, though. We're all moving at the speed of light. Everything goes so fast and everyone's so busy and nobody has time to catch it all, But I know that when I put out a call to people, hey, this person's struggling. Hey, this track isn't getting any love. Hey, this band is thinking about walking away. There are always dozens of you who immediately jump into the fray and start holding the ceiling up for other people. So if you feel like you're alone, if you feel like you're not being seen and you're not being heard, and it's making you want to walk away, or it's making you depressed, or it's making you anxious, or it's burning you out, reach out. Reach out. Don't go inward. It's too easy to just bottle it all up and push it all down and hold it all in. And that never ends well, because it's got to come out somehow, and it's never going to be in a healthy way. So what I would say is, again, this is the beginning of a series of conversations about this. And the next one I'm hoping to have with other people, whether it's in the comments or on the show itself. But take stock today. If you watch this and it's all babbling and it makes no sense and I'm meandering and you're like, what the hell is she even talking about? If you take one thing away from it, let it be this. Take stock for yourself. Check your expectations. Check what you really need, and measure that up against what you've been doing and what you've been chasing. And if those two things aren't pretty close together, go back, start over, simplify, say, what do I really need? What do I really need? And then how can I connect with other people in a way where maybe my need will be met a little bit better? And again, it's not a perfect system. And I know it's not a panacea, but when we talk about this community and we talk about family and we talk about holding each other up, that's a big part of it, because people in this community have struggled with things that would fell a soldier, just lived through things that are unspeakable and horrible. And even if it's not an event, even it's just battling depression all the time, or anxiety all the time, or being bipolar, or, being neurodivergent, not being able to find your footing in the world, whatever it is, everyone is struggling. They say that everyone's fighting some sort of battle. It's really true. Usually it's more than one. But this community doesn't want to see anyone sink or fall or just feel ignored or invisible. Okay? Do not value yourself at the worth that the industry puts on you. The price tag is wrong. Okay. This community wouldn't exist if the people in it weren't as talented and generous as they are. So try not to get caught up in all of that. Try not to fall prey to the expectations that the industry, that, the platforms, social media, everything puts on you. I know people talk about that all the time, that it's, everybody just puts the best stuff out or whatever, but it does fuck with you. It gets in your head, and it's easy to think that because other people are only talking about their wins, that they don't have any losses. Anyone who's trying has losses. Even the most popular musicians have things that don't land. Okay. But please, if you are struggling in any way, find someone to reach out to, find someone to talk to. There are too many of us here who care too much about all of you to let you fall. And if I ever find out that anybody's really struggling and you didn't reach out to anybody, I'm going to come get you, because that's not what we do here. So thanks for listening. I hope I said anything of value. I don't really feel like I did, but that's my own reality check I got to do when I stop recording this. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Reach out to me, let me know, and let me know what you think you might want to hear about for the next episode. And we will try and talk about those things for you. So that's another Inside Indies. We'll see you next time.